Hey, welcome to the Invisible Strength Podcast. We are so happy you're here today. We are joined by fellow spoonie and autoimmune warrior, Rachel. She is the voice behind the SpoonFull Podcast and is navigating not one, but two autoimmune diseases. She's a wealth of information and inspiration. Rachel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
As always, Chris, it's so happy for you to join this conversation with us.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited to be here as well, for sure.
Rachel, before we get into your autoimmune conditions, can you share a little bit about yourself outside of health?
Yeah. Well, my name is Rachel, and I have been married to my husband for just 25 years
Ooh,
this past summer.
Congrats.
And we have 3 adult boys and a soon-to-be daughter-in-law. Things I like to do. Life is a little slower now, so I am obsessed with my 2 basset hound dogs, and so they keep me company. And I just like podcasting, and I like, artsy fartsy stuff, things to kind of keep me busy.
that's wonderful. Chris and I can relate. We both have two boys, but
Hmm.
they're a bit younger.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Rachel, if we were to look at your life before your autoimmune conditions, what did that look and feel like?
Much faster.
Yeah.
I was in my mid-30s, and I was a retail district manager. I had multiple stores that I would travel to. I did a lot of traveling for work, worked a lot of hours, and it was just very busy and just always on the go. And it was fun, it brought me a lot of happiness, and then of course we all know chronic illness changes that a little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, what did that look like for you? How did it come about?
The diabetes it's pretty cut and dry. So I was actually an odd situation that I was 21 when I started having symptoms of type 1 diabetes,
Okay.
whereas that's normally diagnosed younger.
Hmm.
And so at first they didn't really know what to do with me. They said, "Are you insulin dependent type 1 or are you a type 2? And we need to go this route." So they treated me as a type 2 for quite a while. And I had a very extended honeymoon period, almost a year,
Hmm.
where I was on pills and followed the diet and all of that. And it wasn't until I got sick shortly after my wedding, I got really sick and the pills weren't working. And they said, "Okay, well, now you're definitely type 1. Your body just got used to the pills, but then it wasn't good enough to sustain it." And
Yeah.
so then I've been on insulin pumps for well over 20 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, the MS was a little bit more difficult. Sometimes because of the diabetes, it can make other things more difficult.
Got you.
So it was, I think, 2009, started feeling some numbness in my toes. And then within a few hours, it was kind of up to my ankles. And within a few more hours, it was, mid leg. And so I went to my doctor and they immediately sent me to the emergency room. And they thought I had Guillain-Barré, which would have been very, very bad. Luckily, it was not that. And it stopped around my knees. And they really don't know what caused it. I had some problems walking a couple months afterwards and eventually kind of felt better. And then the same thing happened the following year, just not as severe. And so the neurologist really looked into it. And it was one of those things that I know a lot of people with chronic illness deal with is it's like, whereas diabetes is cut and dry. You're either diabetic or you're not.
Right.
With MS and some other conditions, it takes a while. You have to have so many relapses in a matter of time. You have to show progression. You have to show all of these things. And so it was 6 years of waiting. And the last year, the year that I was diagnosed, it was like, "Yeah, we think this is it, but we're going to wait for one more test. We're going to wait a little bit longer. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And eventually it's like a puzzle. There were too many pieces that were pointing toward it, and got my diagnosis about 10 years ago.
Mm.
Okay.
So talk to us a bit about like the the treatment for that, are there ways in which your doctors are able to treat both conditions in concert, or does it really feel like you're dealing with these two separate paths and just trying to walk that tightrope in between them?
Yeah. Treatment wise, is very much two separate paths.
Hmm.
So the diabetes is the insulin routine and making sure that I have my insulin pump and doing all of that. The MS, I'm currently on a monthly injection
Hmm.
that I've been on for a couple years. I went through many medications that did not work, and we
Right.
found one that so far has worked really well. So treatment wise, they're treated very differently, but they also tend to interact with each other a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm.
So the blood sugars are high, some of my MS symptoms will flare,
Right.
and they kind of feed off each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel, 6 years, that's a long time waiting without answers, a lot of uncertainty. Can you take us through the emotional side of what that felt like during that time?
It was hard, and like I said, so many people, I've seen so many stories of people who are in the same boat. It's taken years. And
Hmm.
it's such a weird feeling because it's like they're telling me I probably have this autoimmune disease that's progressive, but yet they're not 100% sure, and they would say, "We don't wanna give you these drugs unless we're 100% sure it's MS because the drugs are very hard on your body," which
Right.
I understood. But it's this weird feeling of feeling like your body's progressing in this disease, but yet you don't have a solid diagnosis, so you're not getting any treatment. And they're telling you, we just have to wait, we just have to wait. Emotionally, it's up. And my husband even said the other day, I remember going to your appointments thinking, this is the day we're going to get the diagnosis. And they would say, well, let's do one more test, or let's wait a little longer and see if this symptom goes away. And it was just feeling like you wanted the treatment so bad, and I really felt in my gut that this was MS.
Hmm.
To me, it made sense, but I wasn't in control of that. So there's a lot of just trusting that the doctors are going to do it when they feel it's necessary, and really trusting them.
We talk with a lot of autoimmune warriors who have experienced that long period of diagnoses, and particularly with our sisters in this work who biases has allowed doctors to say, well, perhaps it's PMS, perhaps it's just, something you're making up. Did you encounter any of that sort of like misdirection while you were waiting, or did it feel like the doctors were really honoring and hearing your story?
At first, it was more of like, "Oh, it's probably your diabetes," and I'm
Mhm.
thinking, well, I get some of that because of numbness and tingling that can go along with diabetes, but I was in very well control with my blood sugars. So at first, it wasn't really recognized. It probably wasn't taken as seriously for, I would say, maybe the first 4
Mhm.
years. It was when the symptoms were getting worse, and obviously the 4 years of seeing this symptoms, that it was like, "Okay, well, maybe this really is, MS."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a long waiting period, but I know sometimes when you get that diagnosis, it can feel both relief and a
Mhm.
sorrow for the life that you thought you had.
Yeah.
How did you process both diagnoses and move forward from that?
It's so weird because I went through maybe a year or so of leading up to, yes, it's probably MS. But when you actually get that diagnosis and say, yes, it's MS, why don't you look over your medication choices and let's pick a medication and let's go on treatment. It was at that point that it was kind of like, wait a second, I've been waiting for this diagnosis, but now it's real and it's
Yeah.
scary. And especially with something like MS where it's progressive,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
I say a lot, this may be the best I ever feel, is what I feel today.
Yeah.
And I may never be this healthy. And so there was a lot of fear of like, where am I going to be in 10 years, in 20 years, in
Right.
30 years? And So yeah, it seems odd for somebody to feel like relief of getting a diagnosis like MS,
Yeah.
but it's so true because you wander these roads of like, am I crazy? Am I really understanding what my body's doing? Is it really MS or could it be something else? And so getting it's kind of like validation,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people who don't have chronic illness don't understand that. They probably think, "What, you wanted MS?" And that's not the case, but just knowing that, okay, we have the diagnosis, now we can move forward.
Yeah. Where did you find support on this journey? Because, what you just said was so profound. This whole notion of today may be the best I ever will feel like going forward. How
Mhm.
do you, glean, strength? Like, what is your support system like? How are you able to keep carrying on this journey?
I think that it has to be first and foremost my husband. He's been a great support for me, and he's always there for me. We went through a lot after my diagnosis. We
Mhm.
went into marriage counseling, mostly because I was having a hard time regaining my self-worth after this diagnosis and having to leave my job and all of those things. And he went with me. We did marriage counseling and we learned how to communicate better. So it used to be I was so stubborn and hard headed, and I'm like, I'm going to do this myself. MS is not going to take me down, all of these things.
Mhm.
And so he would step back and kind of let me do it. And through the journey and as I progressed, he now knows to up and say, no, let me do this, and kind of protect that. He was in the position of wanting to fix things, and I was in the position of not wanting to ask for help. And that's not really, yeah, a good pair. And I've got 3 boys. They were, in their tweens, I
Mhm.
guess,
Mhm.
when I was diagnosed with MS, and they've learned a lot of compassion and empathy, and they are great helps to me when they see if I'm tired or they automatically do things to help out.
Mhm.
So my family's really been the ones that have kept me going.
Yeah.
They say a lot of times with these diseases, they're family diseases because they
Mhm.
impact the whole family. And you've
Yes.
talked a bit about how your husband managed it. How did your sons and you guys as a whole work through all the ups and downs of it?
We did a couple sessions of family counseling. Boys tend to be a little bit different than girls. They're a little bit less emotional. And so, I was in therapy for quite a while, many years. My husband and I did marital counseling. And so we did invite the boys in for a session just to talk about, their questions about what MS is or what their feelings are and what they see, what scares them, and just giving them a place to be honest and talk about their feelings. Still very difficult, because they are
Yeah.
boys, but my therapist once said, and I've mentioned this on my podcast quite a bit, but I think it's so profound. I was in therapy one day just crying and saying, "What did I do? My husband didn't sign up for this. My kids didn't sign up for this. This isn't fair to them." And my therapist said, "Do you realize the gift that you've given your sons?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? What gift are you talking about?" I thought he's crazy. He said, "The gift of empathy, that
Mhm.
they're going to go through life understanding what it's like maybe to be different, people who struggle, people who might not walk normal, or somebody who's in a wheelchair because they've seen me in a wheelchair, and giving them the gift of empathy that their heart can be maybe a little bit softened to
Mhm.
others who are experiencing challenges."
That is powerful. I think about all the support that you've articulated, that you surrounded yourself with, and that you sought for your family. What was that moment when you said, "I think I'm in a space now where I can articulate this to the world through your podcast"? Like, what part of your journey made you say, I'm in a safe enough space, I'm in a brave enough space to be able
Mhm.
to take that step and start my podcast?
Oh gosh, it was early 2024, and I I felt very lonely. Chronic illness can be really, really lonely.
No doubt.
And I didn't know that there were spaces for people with chronic illness. I didn't realize the vast community that's already out there. But I thought, well, what if I had a space where no matter what your chronic illness is, it's a space where people can come together? Because whether you have lupus or diabetes or MS or fibromyalgia, we all experience a lot of the same symptoms, the fatigue, the mental health. And so it kind of happened very quickly. I put together the Spoonful of Strength Instagram page and started just putting information out there, uplifting things, quotes, I think that are really powerful, and just kind of spreading the word of you're not alone. And in doing that, it very rapidly, I guess, came upon me to do a podcast.
Mhm.
And at first, I invited my sister-in-law, who is a stage 4 cancer survivor and has fibromyalgia. We did it together up until this last summer. So it was us doing that together and
Mhm.
just inviting Spoonies on to share their stories, talking about subjects that are important. Since September, I've been doing this on my own with the help of I'm inviting in Spoonies that have been on the podcast before to co-host with me, and we talk about different subjects. And then I invite in doctors and therapists
Mhm.
and sleep doctors and things to really get tips and tricks and things to help the community. So it was just, I didn't think it would be as big as it is, and we're still growing, but it's fed me more than what I feel like I've given.
For sure. With it being the spoonful, we talk a lot about just spoons and managing our energy. You
Mhm.
talked about having to leave your retail job. How does managing your energy, what does that look like for you today?
I'm doing better than I used to.
Mhm.
I used to be like, I don't feel horrible today. I'm going to do everything I can imagine
Right.
and get everything done today that I need to do. And that never worked out really well.
Mhm.
So I'm getting better at that. And for me, it kind of breaks down. I look at my week, but even with the day, what do I have to do today? Do I have
Yeah.
a doctor's appointment? Do I have PT? Do I, what are the things that I have to do? And then what are the things that I really need to do, like empty the dishwasher or clean the bathroom? And then what are the things that I want to do?
Right.
And kind of setting up my day. And it gets difficult with energy, and I've learned to do things in steps. So if I have to empty the dishwasher, that takes me 3 times to do.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I will empty the dishwasher and set it on the counter, and I go sit down for 10 minutes and I watch my watch. I get up, I put that stuff away. I go sit down again, and then I get back up and fill it with whatever's in the sink, and just really being mindful of taking the rest as I need it. And I actually get more done by doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I've learned that personally. I was very similar and I still work on it all the time, but needing to get all the things done. And you really have to work at, okay, I need this 5-10 minutes to reset.
Mhm.
With advocacy and the podcast, like that can just be a lot mentally and physically,
Right.
in addition to taking those rest periods. And what other ways are you making sure you're filling your cup and you're taking care of yourself in the way that you need to?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I think the podcast has done more for me than it has for others. And I feel like that fills my cup of finding people with amazing stories that I feel like need to be shared. Or I get a lot of people just emailing me their story or experts and things like that. And I think to fill my cup up is just how do I say this? To fill my cup up is just doing things that make me feel like a successful person. Like back in the day when I was working, that was my success. My success now is not overdoing it. It's finding voices that need to be heard, and it's then taking the time that I need to be able to do something enjoyable, even if it's just watching, these reruns of drama shows or whatever it may be. But um, yeah, I think that's the way that I kind of make sure I'm giving back to myself.
Absolutely. What are the ways in which you have found yeah, successful in prioritizing rest? Because you talked about the sort of like pacing it during activities, but especially with something like a podcast, as podcasters, we can get so excited about doing not only the episodes themselves, but all the administrative stuff, booking the guests, editing, all those things.
Mhm.
How are you succeeding in saying, okay, I'm done for the day? Like how do you pay attention to those limits in terms of the whole day, not just the separate activities?
Yeah, it's hard because there is, as you know, a lot to do. It's not just sitting here for a half hour and then you're done. It's the editing and all of that.
Hmm.
I try to schedule the recordings far enough ahead. And the last 2 seasons, I've actually tried to take like 2 or 3 weeks and do like 2 or 3 interviews a week.
Hmm.
And that's all I focus on before the season. And then, and I kind of schedule that time as I'm not going to have anything really else going on.
Hmm.
And then I have a couple weeks before it starts to slowly edit and get them out as they need to so
Hmm.
that it's not constantly every week I have an interview and editing and all of that to
Right.
do in 1 week. So
Right.
I tend to do all the interviews before the season starts. And then that way, and I'm going to try this season to get them all edited, but that's a lot. But it breaks it down a little bit smaller. So it's less to do on a weekly basis going forward.
Yeah, it's really wise.
For sure. As you look forward and you think about goals for the podcast and other areas of your life, how do you manage your dreams and goals with the uncertainty of a progressive autoimmune condition like MS?
Yeah. I think goals are a little bit different. Hopes and dreams, I think, are a little bit different when you're dealing with a progressive illness. And, hopes and dreams, I feel like I've tended to look season by season instead of decade by decade of, what are these next 3 months? What do I want to accomplish? What am I looking forward to, whether it be a vacation or whatever that might be? And just looking at things in smaller pieces, because when you look too far into the future, it can be overwhelming, especially not knowing where I'm going to be physically. And I think that dreams and hopes change when you have a chronic illness, and just adjusting them to what's comfortable for me and adjusting my hopes and my dreams to something that's gonna make me happy and not necessarily success by what my podcast does or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's really just looking at a small amount of time and saying, "What's gonna make me happy these next couple months?"
Mhm.
I appreciate that, especially as we are just entering 2026 and New Year's resolutions are the talk of the town. To your point, can feel very overwhelming. Whereas if you're more focused on seasons or shorter stints, it's easier to reflect and be like, okay, what do I need to do for myself right now? So I
Mhm.
appreciate the shorter increments and just acknowledging that, hey, we don't know what the next year, 2 years, or five
Yeah.
years is going to look like, but I'm going to
Mhm.
just take this day by day.
Yeah, because it can be very scary. My son's engaged, and I don't know if he's getting married this year or next year, and so the thought is, am I gonna be able to walk down the aisle,
Yeah.
without right now I walk with my walker and I use a wheelchair when necessary, and so
Mm.
it's those sort of things that can be overwhelming of, will I be able to walk, with my husband down the aisle for his wedding? And those are things that can be a little bit emotional that,
So,
you know
yeah, I would say so. That's more than a bit emotional, and those
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
big challenges.
Mhm.
What gives you hope and faith right
Right.
now?
You talked about New Year's resolutions, and I don't make a New Year's resolution, but I do a little spin off of it in the last 3 years. I don't do a resolution, I do a word. And so words in the past have been, last year was breathe, and just trying to take a minute to breathe. The year before was kind, of just being kind. And this year, my word is grace, and giving grace to myself, not being hard on myself for not doing things that my body wouldn't appreciate, and having grace for people that don't understand what I'm going through. Really trying to focus on myself and taking care of myself and giving myself the ability to fail in some people's eyes, and not having to feel like I have to prove myself to anybody. I'm just giving people grace that if they don't get it, you really don't get it until you get it,
Yeah.
with chronic illness. But for those that don't understand, of being able to say, that's okay. She doesn't understand, but I know what's going on. And so that's kind of where I'm at as far as looking into the future and hope and faith and all that.
I think that's so powerful to demonstrate that level of kindness to yourself. I found to be a necessity when doing the autoimmune, because it can be so tempting to sort of self-loathe and be frustrated and push yourself too hard. Talk to us a bit about the ways in which you demonstrate that sort of gentleness towards self. Like, what are the rhythms, beyond that what you described, like, interviewing and editing as someone who co-hosts with Karen and edits other podcasts. I was able to do that to sort of like front load some of the work, but talk about other areas that you may not have articulated already in which you have learned to be kind to yourself.
I mentioned it a little bit earlier about, when I was first diagnosed and I didn't have as many symptoms as I do now, of just feeling like, go, go, go. This is not going to take me. This is not going to beat me down. I am stronger than MS. And I learned that I was trying to prove myself to MS and not understanding the depths of this disease. And so one of the things that's been really difficult for me to learn, and I'm really stepping into a new path with this, is learning to ask for help and learning to say no. And especially asking for help. I've always been that way before diagnosis. I was always just one to do it myself. And that was very difficult for me to transition, because I saw it as, I can't do this. I can't go get groceries and walk all the aisles and do all that. And I had to turn around my thoughts of, I don't want my body to have to go through this. So I'm choosing to ask for help, or I'm choosing to order delivery on my groceries. And so I guess realizing that it's okay to ask for help, and it's actually a necessity, and it doesn't mean you're weak. It means that you're honoring your body. There are days where, I said MS won't beat me. There are days that MS does beat me.
Oh, for sure.
And those are the days where I have to have grace and say, it's okay. I didn't get anything done today. And I don't feel well mentally. And it's okay. And it got me this day, but you know what? I'll come back.
We talk a lot about invisible strength on this show, being Invisible Strength Podcast, and giving yourself that grace and the acceptance that it's okay that your MS beat you one day or for a certain period of time, because it will pass and things will get better. What does invisible strength mean to you?
I think to me, it's the simple days. It's the getting out of bed, the taking medicine every day, of allowing my body to rest, and doing those things despite the pain, and doing it knowing that the others around me don't understand the pain that's involved in those daily activities. So it's about invisible strength, meaning just getting through the day, being soft with your body and your mind, and just allowing yourself to kind of set your own boundaries as far as what you allow your body to do, and your mind, and the mind is, I advocate a lot on the podcast about, the mental part of it and the strength to mentally handle these chronic illnesses.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot to process. Having gone through such a long journey, then you're in a much better place today. What would you tell other people who are earlier on in their journey and may be overwhelmed or uncertain about what the future holds?
hmm Um, I would say breathe, take a breath
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's a lot. Depending on the diagnosis, you have to really just sit with it and breathe and understand that chronic illness is not, or I should say, chronic illness is just about baby steps and about those
Mhm.
shortened seasons, like I talked about. I think one of the things that helped me out a lot within the last couple of years is really gaining a lot of knowledge about your illness and also being an advocate. I went many years of just doing what the doctor said. I mean, I think that's kind of what we grew up on. You didn't
Yeah.
question anybody. And it's not about questioning their experience, but it's about the fact that the doctor does not live in your body and that you are the master of your body and what it feels and what it's doing, and learning to ask a lot of questions. Learn about your disease, learn about the tests that you've had. And a lot of times things can fall through the cracks as far as different testing that needs to be done. Ask for the test, hey, it's been a year since my MRI. Isn't it due for another one? Yes, and you almost have to have your own like medical records, especially when you're dealing with multiple autoimmune diseases, of really knowing your lab work and knowing what is normal for you,
Mhm.
and finding the support wherever that may be.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's your spouse, sometimes it's your best friend, sometimes it's your, mom or your dad, but finding the people that are going to be on this journey with you
Mhm.
and through the dark times and through the good times, that after 25 years of marriage, my husband's right there with me
Yeah.
through diabetes and MS and everything. That's the person that you need to find, because nobody can do it alone. It's,
No.
so much
Hmm.
harder.
It, it's that power of knowing that, as you said earlier, these journeys can be so isolating, and
Uh-huh.
still you can't get through without having a support base and having some form of community, whether it's your family or chosen family. So thank you for lifting
hmm
it up.
Yeah. Yep.
So you brought up some very good themes. So you're talking about support, even just getting back to the basics of breathing and giving
Mhm.
yourself grace and advocacy. Are there any other like core themes or values that you feel have been essential to your journey?
Oh gosh, I have to think about this one. I mentioned it a little bit, but the mental health part of it, I think, is
Yeah.
been invaluable to me. Like I said, I had to quit my job. I lost my whole identity and my self-worth, and feeling as though I was an important part of the family, that I was a good wife. And it took a lot of therapy for me to really see that I wasn't, that MS was not my it was my diagnosis, but it's not who I am.
Yeah.
And my mental health has been a lot better. And because of that, it's helped me be able to deal with the physical things better. And so one of the things I think is just taking care of the mental part of the disease as well, because no matter what, getting a diagnosis that's going to be lifelong is devastating, and dealing
Yeah.
with that and really working through a lot of those emotions, because I don't know where I would be had I not made that call to step in and get therapy. I was in a rough place. So that in itself, I think, is just, don't forget the mental health of it.
Yeah, I think especially early on, it can
hmm
be hard to actually realize how much of a toll it can take on you mentally.
Yeah. I mean, chronic illness changes your life in every way. It changes your perspective, and it um, changes your body physically.
Mhm.
And so it all has to work together.
For
On this
sure.
side of your journey, what's one thing you wish you could say to your younger self at any
Mm.
point in your journey, particularly like a valley or a triumph? What was something you wish you could have told yourself?
Um, Enjoy it. Like, enjoy every moment, because knowing, if at my 21-year-old self not being diabetic or having MS, um, I was very timid. I would not try new things. I would not take chances. I was just very kind of just on the path of doing what I do and not really enjoying and taking a lot of chances. And so if I had to look back at her, take the chances. Don't be a scaredy cat like you are. And just enjoy every moment, because you never know the things that, 25 years later, appreciating the fact of going bowling with my family. That's something I can't
Uh,
do anymore,
yeah,
Yeah.
or, my family's a big baseball family, going and playing baseball at a
yeah,
park or something like that, of just
mhm,
really recognizing and learning to enjoy and being grateful for everything. And I'm still as grateful today for the things that I do have.
yeah.
That's incredible. Rachel, we so appreciate your experiences and sharing your perspectives. You lifted up a lot of great themes. Where can people listen to your podcast and learn more about you?
Yes. So our Instagram page is Spoonful of Strength. Now, I do have to mention Spoonful is 2 L's. It was named Spoonful of Strength because we have our little spoons, but they are full of strength. So
Love
Spoonful with 2 L's of Strength on Instagram. On TikTok, we are spoonful.of.strength. And then the podcast, we just ended a season, but we're gearing up for the next one starting in February. But we have almost 80 episodes to go back and listen to.
all
So
right.
you can find that on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Yeah, we're also on YouTube at Spoonful of Strength. So our episodes air on Wednesdays, and we've got some really good guests coming on this next season, including you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are gonna come in and co-host with me, and
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
indeed.
We are very excited about that, and we'll be sure to check out those 80 episodes. Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Make it
we
happen.
kind we kinda overdid it at first. We were, like, turning them out, and then we were like, "Okay, we're not really listening to the theme of what we preach of
Mhm.
taking time." And so it's, but, yeah, we've been enjoying it, and I've been enjoying this last 6 months of trying to steer this ship on my own.
Mhm, mhm.
Well, I appreciate you being honest about overdoing it in the beginning, because I
Yeah,
think it's a lifelong lesson that you're continuously trying to relearn how much is too much and
yeah,
finding that right balance for your level of energy in that season
yeah,
of life.
Mhm.
yeah, yep. It always changes.
For sure. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you. To
Oh.
our community, please check out invigorateyourjourney.com and take care. Until next time, peace.
Peace.